Why knits are unique. Unlike woven constructions, which are typically rigid and stable, knits exhibit stretch and more easily conform to a change of shape. Instead of being made of two sets of interlaced yarns, which remain largely straight, knits are made of one or more yarns traveling in a loop pattern and interlacing with the loops around them to form an intermeshed construction that allows for flexibility, drape, and stretch. These properties make knits ideal for a range of garment constructions, from next-to-skin intimates, lounge and activewear, to warm and fashionable sweaters, to comfortable business wear and high-end luxury apparel. There are two main methods of forming knit fabrics: warp and weft. Weft knitting is made of loops formed in a horizontal manner by adjacent needles. The most common machine used for weft knitting is the circular knitting machine. This machine creates a tube of fabric in a spiral configuration around a cylinder. The width of the fabric is determined by the number of needles contained in a cylinder of the machine. One revolution of the machine completes one course for each yarn feed. Circular machines tend to be very fast and productive. Another type of machine that can be used to produce weft knits is the flat or V-bed machine. This machine can create flat panels as well as tubes and can even produce complete garments straight off the machine. Flat machines are able to vary the width of the knitting by selecting the number of needles used and to change this number throughout a piece. Flatbed machines are generally slower at producing fabric than circular machines, but are able to create more complex and intricate designs. Regardless of the type of machine used, in weft knitting, needles placed next to each other knit one after another in sequence to produce one row of loops from the same yarn. This one row of sequentially formed loops is referred to as a course. The course count is measured by the number of courses per linear unit, expressed as inches or centimeters. If this drawing represents a 1 inch by 1 inch area, you identify this as 5 courses per inch. The vertical column of loops produced by the same needle as it knits successive rows is referred to as a wale. The wale count is measured by the number of wales per linear length. When we look at a single stitch, the stitch breaks down into two elements, the crown and the legs. You will notice that the legs form a V shape, and the crown is more noticeable on the reverse side of the fabric and looks like an upside-down U. Learning to find the crown and legs leads to understanding stitch count and gauge. A wide variety of fabrics can be produced with weft knitting, from simple jersey and ribs, to fleeces and piqués, to cables and complex jacquard constructions. The second system used for knitting is produced by machines that are designed differently, to vertically knit. This illustration shows you how warp knitting, in contrast to weft knitting, is accomplished by forming loops in a vertical direction. If you look closely at an illustration of warp knit, you see that the yarn is intermeshed vertically with two wales. With warp knitting machines, each individual loop is created from separate lengthwise yarns. Wound onto a beam from yarn packages in a creel, the yarns arranged as a warp must be placed parallel to each other. Normally, for the most basic fabrics, each yarn needs its own needle. If 1,000 needles are used on this machine, there needs to be a minimum of 1,000 warp yarns. If there is more than one yarn provided for each needle, more elaborate fabrics can be produced. Common types of warp knit construction include tricot, rachelle, and crochet. Warp knitted fabrics have different properties than weft knits. They have more vertical stretch, which makes warp knits great for swim and active garments. Warp knits can be very fine, making them suitable for hosiery and intimate apparel. They also do not fray or curl at the end if cut horizontally. Warp knits can create very open structures, which is how they produce lace and mock crochet. With warp knitting, individual needles knit simultaneously across the width of the machine. Loops are formed by needles knitting a series of warp yarns fed vertically and parallel to the direction of the fabric formation. Warp knitting machines are very productive, but warp knitted fabric often requires very large production runs due to the lengthy machine setup. The unique properties and wide varieties of knitted fabrics keep them popular for both consumers and the industry. A solid understanding of the different types of equipment and capabilities will help you select the right product and production method for your needs.